Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're cutting through all the noise surrounding Jeffrey Epstein. We're not going to get into the wild theories or speculation. Nope. We're going straight to the hard evidence. We're talking flight logs, emails, actual court testimony. This is the stuff that shows how a convicted predator wasn't just tolerated by the world's most powerful people, he was actively sought out by them. So let's get into it and separate the documented truth from the lies. All right, let's just dive right in with the biggest question, the real puzzle at the heart of this whole thing. Why on earth would the world's most powerful people hang out with a convicted sex offender? Not just hang out with him, but actually seek him out. Well, the most chilling proof? It comes directly from them, in their own words, sent years after everybody knew what he was. Okay, so to really get how this was even possible, we've got to bust some major myths, the official story that's been peddled for years. We're going to break it all down into 5 key parts. We'll look at how justice was denied, the role of his main accomplice, his connection to the powerful, what the unsealed documents actually say, and what it all reveals. Let's start with the biggest misconception of them all, the idea that justice was ever really served. All right, Section 1, justice denied, system exposed. Let's correct the record on that 2008 plea deal. A lot of people think that back in '08, when Epstein was first convicted, the system basically worked. Maybe it wasn't perfect, but it worked. The documents, they tell a totally different and way more sinister story. This wasn't a system of punishment. It was a system built to protect him. 13 months. Seriously, just let that sink in for a second. We're talking about federal charges that could have and probably should have put him away for life. And what did he get? 13 months in a county jail. Not years, not decades, 13 months. It's just unbelievable. And just look at this contrast. It's absolutely insane. On one side, you've got what should have happened, a life sentence that federal investigators were ready to go with. And on the other side, the reality of what he actually got. A secret little sweetheart deal all cooked up behind closed doors that just erased all the serious federal charges. It literally turned a potential life sentence into what? A VIP stay at a county jail with work release? Come on. And let's be crystal clear here. This wasn't just some, unusually lenient deal. A federal judge later looked at this and called it what it was, illegal, straight up. It was designed from the ground up to hide what was happening from his victims, and that's a direct violation of their rights. For Jeffrey Epstein, the system didn't just bend the rules, it completely shattered them. So how did this all happen? Well, Epstein didn't build this empire of influence by himself. No way. To really get a grip on his insane reach into the highest levels of power, you have to understand the woman who held the key, Ghislaine Maxwell. She wasn't just his girlfriend or his partner, she was the architect, the one who built the bridge to the global elite. So who was she? Well, Ghislaine Maxwell was the daughter of a hugely powerful British tycoon, Robert Maxwell. But then her dad dies under really mysterious circumstances, and his whole media empire just collapses in this massive fraud scandal. Suddenly, Ghislaine's entire world just implodes. So she runs off to New York, her family name is Mud, her money's gone, and that's when she meets Jeffrey Epstein. And you see, it was like a match made in hell. She had the one thing he craved, an address book filled with the names of the most powerful people on the planet. And he had what she just lost, a mountain of cash with no questions asked. A perfect and perfectly toxic partnership was born. And her method for recruiting girls? Wow. As you can see from the testimony, it was this chillingly effective step-by-step strategy. This wasn't random. It was a calculated, repeatable process. First, she'd act like a cool older sister, gaining their trust with gifts and attention. Then, she'd start normalizing really inappropriate behavior. After that, she'd isolate them, get them to travel to Epstein's properties. And finally, she would deliver them to him. It was a system. Okay, let's move on to the next big myth we need to bust. This is probably the biggest one of all, the idea that, after he got convicted in 2008, all his powerful buddies were just horrified and ran for the hills. The unsealed emails? Yeah, they proved the exact opposite was happening. And let's use a really high-profile example here. Take Elon Musk. He made this public statement, a very clear, very direct denial. He basically said, Epstein tried to get me to go to his island and I refused. A simple story of refusal. End of story, right? Well, not so fast, because the documented evidence, we're talking his own emails, unsealed in the files, they don't just contradict his story. They completely blow it up. The files tell a story, all right, but it's not one of refusal. It's a story of him repeatedly asking for an invitation. And get this email was sent just a couple of months after they first met. And more importantly, this is years after Epstein was a publicly registered sex offender. Everyone knew. And he's not just asking to visit the island. Look at his own words. He's asking which night would have the wildest party. And here's his reply when he does get an invitation. Sounds good, we'll try to make it. Again, his own words. So far from refusing, Elon Musk's own emails show him actively trying to make a visit happen. And this is the undeniable reality the documents prove. While Jeffrey Epstein was a known convicted pedophile, some of the most powerful men in the world weren't running away. They were trying to get on the guest list. Right, so moving on to what the unsealed truth really proves. Look, Elon Musk is just one, albeit very famous example. What the unsealed files really show is the absolutely staggering scale of Epstein's influence, even after he was a convicted criminal. And his whole operation? It was way more than just parties. We're talking about a sophisticated global criminal enterprise. And when you actually dig into these files, you see how it all worked. You find evidence of this global trafficking network. You see all this coded language, like the word pizza showing up over 900 times, which many believe was code for victims. You find proof of hidden cameras everywhere, in smoke detectors, even dolls, a classic blackmail tool. And of course, you see this constant back and forth with former presidents, prime ministers, tech billionaires, you name it. And this wasn't just about parties and social climbing. Epstein was offering some very real and very shady financial services. For example, in some of these emails, we literally see him walking the billionaire Anil Ambani through a textbook strategy to screw over his creditors. Step 1, create shell companies to hide your assets. Step 2, move all your money into them. Step 3, declare bankruptcy and protect your personal fortune. It's all right there. So what do the files ultimately reveal? What are we supposed to take away from all this? Look, these documents, they're about way more than just one man's horrific crimes. They're a mirror held up to the world that let it all happen. What this whole saga really exposes is that there's a level of wealth and power where the rules, well, they just don't apply. It's a world where a convicted child sex offender isn't a social pariah. He's a valuable asset. Why? Because he keeps secrets. He brokers access to other powerful people, and he provides services that the elite kept lining up for long after the rest of us knew exactly who and what he was. The system isn't broken. It was built this way. Which, of course, leaves us with the million-dollar question, doesn't it? The most important and unsettling question of all. The proof is right here, in black and white, in their own words. But documents can't force accountability. So, will there ever be real consequences for the powerful people who enabled him? That is still a very open question. In the end, the Epstein case really isn't over. It's not just about his past crimes. Think of it more like an X-ray of a system of power and impunity that made him possible. And the most terrifying part? We have to face the very real possibility that this system is still operating today, and that everything we've seen so far is just the tip of the iceberg.